Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the film The Holdovers. Fun fact, this is Dominic Sessa's big screen debut. This film came out in 2023 and stars Paul Giamatti, Divine Joy Randolph, and Dominic Sessa, and was directed by Alexander Payne. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Holdovers follows a teacher, a student, and a cook who are all stuck at a boarding school during the holidays for various reasons. The Holdovers is a comedy drama. It has similar vibes to The Edge of 17, The Breakfast Club, or Good Will Hunting. So let me start out by saying that I wasn't even planning on watching this movie. To be honest, it didn't look interesting to me, but one night I was in a really bad mood and I, for some reason, opened the Peacock app where it was streaming, and it was the first thing that popped up on my screen. And I said, you know what? Whatever, I'll watch it. And by the end of it, I wasn't angry anymore and I really enjoyed the movie. Each character in this movie was like an onion filled with layer and layer, and by the end of the film, there were just no more layers to explore. Even though the timeline of events was very small, they all benefited from, being around each other. Paul Giamatti was great as Paul, this teacher who takes his job way too serious and lacks sympathy and understanding for his students. We see how this affects his relationships inside and outside of work. And as the film goes on, he realizes from spending so much time with Angus that not all of these kids are entitled brats, and some are super smart and just have some things going on in their life that is affecting their behavior. We also learned that he never graduated from college due to some Harvard legacy student framing him for plagiarism and him hitting him, which probably explains why he pushes these students so hard and doesn't give them a break just because their parents are rich. It was such a nice conclusion to see him risk his job to make sure Angus was able to continue learning because even though so many people have doubted Angus, including his mom. He wanted to make sure that Angus had the best possible future. In some ways, with this film being set during Christmas time and him slowly becoming nicer as the film goes along, he kind of reminded me of The Grinch. There was a moment after the Christmas Eve party where Paul was talking about how he wished that Angus's mom or dad would come and pick him up because he didn't want to spend Christmas babysitting him, and Angus lets him know that his dad was dead. Even though we find out later that his dad is alive, Mary reprimands Paul at that time for speaking the way he did because you never know what people are going through, which is something everyone could do to remember when speaking to people. This is also a theme I noticed throughout the film with these characters is that they're all battling their own demons in different ways. Divine Joy Randolph was exceptional as Mary, who truly is just trying to get through life and find her purpose after losing her son, who also attended the boarding school. We see how she worked to provide a better life for her son and how some of the kids treat her bad, but she just keeps on pushing. For most of the film, she puts on a strong exterior, but there was a moment at the Christmas Eve party where she has a little breakdown, which was really heartbreaking to see. I loved how she was always making sure that Paul was treating Angus right because she knew he wasn't a bad kid and had this motherly instinct. And, she kind of could tell that he had something going on in his life, or at least that's what I felt when I was watching her performance in this film. I feel like at the end of the movie, even though Paul was gone, she would still be looking after Angus. I think Divine was just spectacular in this role, and I think that she deserves all the praise that I've seen online that she has been getting for this role. Dominic Sessa was fantastic as Angus, and I was even more shocked to find out that this is his big screen debut. I think it's one thing to be a good actor, but I can only imagine it's intimidating to come in with these established actors, and honestly, I think he really did a good job of holding his own. I love finding out more about this character, and I feel like a lot of the emotional moments centered around his character. When we meet his mom and stepdad at the end, I felt so sad for his character because instead of being a champion for him, they just neglect him and fear he's going to be like his father. I could tell in the beginning of the movie that he was a smartass, but he was also hiding something, and we come to find out that it's basically because his personal life is in shambles. It was nice that he spends this time with Paul and Mary because I truly think he needed someone to remind him that he is not a screw up and that not all the adults in his life will fail him like his mom did. There was a scene at the end of the film where Mary and Angus are waiting to hear what happens after Paul talks to Angus's mom and stepdad, and it was heartbreaking to see on screen, but Mary and Angus didn't say much, but they did such a great job of using their body language to express the emotions in this scene. Angus seems to finally find a place where he is happy after his winter experience and is scared that it's all going to be ripped away. While Mary comes in, and you can just tell that she can sense that he doesn't really need to talk, but just needs someone to sit there with him and comfort him. When I think of this movie, there are a couple of scenes that stand out, and this is one of them because it brought out so many emotions without having to say a single word. The film is set in the 70s, and they did a good job of making sure the aspect ratio made it feel like you were watching a movie from that time. With it being set in that time period, they also incorporated some things that would be normal, like the lack of talking about mental illness and a black woman having a job as a cook at a school that's primarily white students and a black man being the janitor, as well as the dynamic between female and male colleagues at the time. The film just did a great job of getting that feel and look of the time period down. While this is a film with some great dramatic moments, it's also a film that offers some good laughs. I think one of my favorite moments that made me laugh is the very serious moment when Angus dislocates his shoulder and Paul must take him to the hospital. It starts off with Paul chasing Angus, who is trying to arrange a way not to spend the rest of his break with Paul, and a funny chase happens, but Angus dislocates his shoulder in the end. The moment of Paul trying to figure out if it's real and then trying to get to the hospital was just funny, with them yelling at each other and stressing about the situation that they're in. My favorite part of this movie is probably the moment when Angus tries to sneak off to see his dad and Paul lets him. At first, I was disappointed at Angus for lying to Paul again, but I told myself to see what's going to happen because he might have a good reason, and he really did. It's an emotional moment because Angus told Paul before that his dad is dead, but we realize that he is not dead and is in a mental institution, and I think he avoided telling him because the stigma that mental health had during the 70s and was probably scared of being judged. He is so excited to see his dad, which was nice to see. And the moment after his visit at the restaurant is great because Angus opens up to Paul and tells him what happened and gives the viewer insight onto why this character is like he is. And we also get a little bit of an answer of why he's probably stuck at this school during the holidays. It's towards the end of this film, and it's a scene to me that had some great acting and really pulled out the emotions of the viewers. Mary eventually joins them, and in this moment, I just thought that the characters each had grew tremendously from the time that we had met them up until this moment, and they all really helped each other grow in some way or another. The ending of this scene was nice to see them bonding after a failed attempt at making Cherry's Jubilee in the parking lot. The Holdovers is a fantastic movie where everyone really pulls their weight. There are some moments in this film where you're like, this is a feel good movie. Some when you're like, oh, this movie is making me laugh. And then there's some where you're like, wait, am I crying? I didn't expect to love this movie as much as I did, but I am so glad that I watched it. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.